Hello, welcome everyone. Today we have a new process mining cafe. Our topic is comparing processes. So we are looking at comparisons. That's a topic I think very relevant for many of you. And I'm here today with Rudy. Hi, Rudy. And we have a guest. Our guest today is Hanna Nesterenko from UkrSibBank. That's a bank in Ukraine, which is part of the BNP Paribas Group. Hi, Hanna. Welcome. Thank you both for joining. Thank you, Hanna, for being our guest today. So we will get started with our topic right away. First, I want to do two housekeeping points. The first is that I want to remind you all that the process mining camp is coming up. So we have opened the registration. The early bird rate is still available until end of next week, so until 4th of April. We have extended the setup from last year even. So last year we had the camp extended to 2 days, and this year it's even 3 days. So we have a full day, a pre-day before the actual camp starts on Wednesday, 14th of May. We have a boot camp, so this is a very good opportunity for people who are really new to process mining. They can receive kind of a training to be to know all the basics for process mining, so that they can fully participate in the rest of the camp, and they have the best basis to understand all the discussions and really get most out of the rest of camp. And then on Thursday, 15th May, we have practice talks where people share their experiences, so you can learn from others what they have been doing. But then we also go into discussion with each other in the discussion roundtables. People in small groups of up to 5, 6, 7 people maximum. You're really talking about your own challenges and experiences with process mining, and we then reconnect with the whole group about what you discussed. And in the evening we have a dinner on site, and we have lots of time to continue the discussions that were started throughout the day and to really get to know everyone. And then on the last day, on Friday the 16th, we again, just like last year, that was really a great setup. Last year we do it the same way. This year we have 3 workshops. So each of the participants participates in 3 workshops, which focus on different aspects that are important for process mining. So about data, how to prepare data, how to get the data ready for process mining in all ways that's important. Then the actual analysis. And then also organizational aspects, how you make an impact, how you really can drive change in your organization. So after these 3 days or 2 days, you will have learned a lot about process mining, connected with many people, but also have a lot of ideas for your own work. So we hope that many of you can join us in Eindhoven. Check out the website. Let us know if you have questions. And so we see you in Eindhoven in May. Now, back to our cafe today. So today we are going to talk about comparing processes. And what we really like about our cafe sessions is that we do record them live. So you can watch online and follow us while we are doing the cafe. And that means you can participate. So you can also add any questions or comments that you have while we are live. And you can do this just below the video where you are watching this right now. There's an option to join the chat. You can enter your name. You don't need a password, just enter your name or any name, and you're in the chat, and we keep an eye on your notes. All right, so now let's get ready. And let's start with our session. So we start with you, Hanna, because the topic of today was really initiated by our interactions together, where you had the situation that you wanted to compare different processes at your bank. So maybe you can start just by introducing yourself a little bit and where this was coming from, please.
Yes, and thank you. For me, I have been working in data analytics for over 9 years, and I have successfully implemented projects in procurement analytics, category management, transport or warehouse logistics, and currently I work in banking sector. Really, today's topic is very interesting because if we see to the process, we see one process, one structure, and maybe one rules. But if we deep to analytics, we can see different situation with different region, different product, different clients type, and it's really very interesting. And it's our ability to development process and to discover more. And as for me, I really like process mining for this ability, to combine business intelligence and data tools, and this synergy opens up great opportunities to process development and process improvement.
Yeah, so you come already from a data background, and now you add process mining to your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So maybe really you started to talk about comparing processes with Hanna, right? A few months back. So
yeah. So if you look at processes and if you look at data in general, you often start comparing things, right? You start to break it down into different chunks that are similar and that you can compare. But with processes, it's kind of a little bit different in the sense that you compare different things, right? And that's also what we are going to show today. And in the comparison elements, I think the power of it is often if you look at processes, you have a status quo, right? So people think how it's going to happen, or they accept as the current situation is. But while breaking it up, and if you compare different things, people look at peers, right? So they want to see what the neighbor is doing, and the neighbor wants to see what you are doing, right? And of course, you are doing different things, but being able to compare is kind of being able to challenge the status quo. And I think that's a very interesting story as part of what Hanna is going to share today.
I think that's, just to add to that, I think that's a very interesting point, because one of the things is, if you want to compare things, what do you compare, right? So where do you decide this is something that I compare against something else? And you're saying, if I understand you correctly, you are talking about responsibilities, and that's also something that, for example, Hanna has seen, right? For example, regions. Is it then that different people are responsible? So you want to look at that separately because of that, or?
No. Really, we can compare different attributes or different characteristics. It depends about our goals and about maybe our KPIs or our focus for this process. We can compare in region, product, client type, maybe region structure, maybe something attributes and characteristics. As for me, I had interesting case with comparing region, and we communicated with Rudy from this topic, and we share thinking about this and about how we can analyze this situation, and comparison, it's very flexible methods, and we can use different characteristics for comparing.
Yes. So, but and means, right? So if you look at the regional comparison, you probably have different managers or different directors, right, which are responsible for each individual region. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And also for the products, right? So you have a deviation that you have product managers, which are then responsible for that particular product, right? And the process part of it.
Yeah. Different regions, different managers, and different branch.
Yep. Yeah, so I think we're going to talk about more about that, but I think that's one of the questions that people are struggling with when they want to compare things, that they're not sure because there are a million things that you could compare. So what do you compare against, right? And there can be different motivations. So if you have separate responsibilities, that can be one reason to say, okay, I look at that separately from that. Because, for example, if I'm talking with that person who's responsible for this region or that product, maybe it makes sense, just to look at what they're doing and not have all the rest mixed in. But another reason can be to look at the things that really make a difference, right? So you want to compare things where you can really learn something from the differences. So I think we are going to talk much more about that.
Yeah, and the approaches can also be then different, right? So sometimes it starts with where you want to do kind of a benchmark and then compare the different things, right? So up front you don't know, and you want to compare lead time, for example, of different regions, or you want to compare the number of activities that happen through a region or certain rework in activities.
Yeah.
Before you actually want to select which ones are good for a more deeper dive comparison.
Yeah.
But it could also be, it's the other way around, right? So you're looking at the whole process and then starting to decide when to break it up in which dimensions, right? So that makes it also a little bit more complicated, right? Where to start? Do I start from the top down or do I start from the bottom up?
Yes. And Hanna, you also mentioned that, so there are different things that you compare, right? Or that you are interested in. So that's also how you went about it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you wanted to compare in these processes.
First of all, before start of comparison, we need to understand what we want in result. Mm-hmm. Yes, what we want analyzed. It's maybe lead time, maybe frequency, maybe rework, maybe bottlenecks, or what we can do.
Yes.
And after that, we analyzed what characteristics and what methods we can use for this activity. For example, if we compare lead time, we can use, for example, average and median methods, and both these methods very good show to us how distribute our lead time in time. Maybe we have extremely longer process. Maybe we have extremely shorter process. And if we have different in this metrics, average and median, we can make idea about outliers, about mistakes in process, and after that we search what following for this metrics and what attributes we use to compare. Mm-hmm. For example.
Yeah, and how do you decide which attributes you want to include, right? So is that driven by a question which there is, or is it just driven by interest? It could also be. So I'd be interested to know that.
Yeah, and can you show slide? And
yes, let's look at your example. Exactly, that's I think a good way to think about it. So yes.
On this slide, example of comparison average and median characteristic, and how we can see this difference, and what results we can make for this. First of all, average and median has different methods for count. Yes, average we count sum of our points and divide to count of these points. If we use median, we need to sort our points and we check main popular indicators, and we count these characteristics. And if we see as for slide, different indicators, average and median. We can see long distribute for our lead time. Yes, we see in left side of our bar chart highs indicators, for right side low indicators, and we see how we interpret this information.
So can I ask, just to make sure I understand it, so are you saying that you are looking that if there's a big difference between the mean and the median, that this shows that the process is not very equally distributed, or that there are some outliers, so that it's interesting to look at that? Is that your point, or are you saying something else?
Yeah, it's interesting because if we have different indicators, we understand we have extremely long or extremely short lead time, and it depends for maybe some mistake, maybe not good communicate with process members, and we have long waiting time maybe for answer to some questions, or maybe we have there are many mistakes, and our process has there are many rework, and
Yes.
it's very interesting characteristic to understanding the process.
Yes, I agree. Maybe before we go further, we will continue in a moment, but what we also want to do is we want to make this really practical for the people who are watching this, and they have maybe their own processes they want to analyze. So it would be nice maybe to briefly show them how they can do exactly what you have explained here, how they can find this in Disco, right? So let me just show you really quickly. So if I go into Disco, I have a process here. The process doesn't really matter. It's a refund process where we have a refund service order, an activity name, one timestamp, and 3 different channels through which this can come in. Now, if we discover the process, that's one thing. But if you go to statistics, and this is where we find what Hanna was saying, we can find in the overview statistics here the case durations. Can look at the total durations, but also here on the right, we see the median and the mean, right? And so here actually we also see some difference. The median is quite low. It's 9 days. The mean is 15 days. So that would be a situation where the difference is quite big, right, Hanna? So that would be kind of indicating that there are quite some outliers, like you have shown.
Yeah, thank you. And in this diagram, I use Python for complete this diagram, but in Disco, it's very useful and very easy make these characteristics. Yes, and if we use Disco, we can see. There are many characteristics, and we can see median and average indicators in full our data set or part of data set. And it's very interesting and very useful information. Yes, and when we know about different indicators, we can do for next step and analyze what follow for these indicators. It's maybe different characteristics and attributes. It depends about our goals and our needs. And for example, in my case, when I add region characteristic to distribution of average and median indicators, I see interesting picture. Can you show next slide?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. And on this slide, you can see the same distribute of lead time, but we add region characteristic, and now we see 3 regions with different indicators. Region red and region blue has short process, and we can see lead time to 40 days. It's the biggest indicators, but we have region green, and this region has long process and extremely long lead time, and this region make our outliers, and this region make difference with indicators average and median.
Yes.
And as for us, it's flag for analyzed and make deep question why it's happened, yes, and what reason for this situation, and after that we can analyze next step. It's mean follow of process. It's maybe individual characteristics of region, of process, of team who do it, and it's very important indicator for next analytics.
Yeah, it's a very good example. It's really what you were saying before, right? So if you look at, from top down, then you see, okay, here are really differences. Hanna showed it so clear. The green region has such a big spread. So that's something now to look into what's different.
Yeah. So maybe we can show an example in a moment, right? So how you can then also break it up in Disco and do the same thing, what you actually can see here.
Yeah.
But maybe before we do that, so I had a question. So selecting the attribute itself, right? So now we are looking at the comparison of the region, right? So that's something you have to decide up front, right? So you decided that you take that attribute and then compare the outcome or the lead time of the different regions with each other, right? So how did you come to identifying the region as one of the attributes? And did you look also at some other attributes or only region? So was that a question up front, or was there another reason?
No, in this case, there are many attributes, and it's the same level of decision. It's client type and other characteristics, but we understand if we use, for example, if we compare product and we understand. Different product, of course, has different result, because individual, for example, loans, more easy process. Corporate loans, it's more difficult, and hard process and longer process. But if we analyzed process for one product, we cut attribute product because it's the same in different region. If we analyzed, for example, level of decision, we understand the same. If level height, it's longer process. If level low, it's and we analyzed some attributes and analyzed logic influence for this result. And region is it's not I don't know how it's not clear attributes for process, and for first time we don't understand situation what region depend for lead time, and that's why we use these characteristics, because a few characteristics can show understanding results, and we understand for this longer for some reason or for short.
Yeah.
Reason interesting characteristic.
Yes, maybe I think it depends on domain knowledge and what you know about the process. But I think in general, something like region or department can always be an interesting candidate to look at, because it has the potential that there are different best practices or different ways of working in different parts of the organization, right? So I think for many situations that could be a good candidate to compare if you're looking for something.
But I think also what Hanna says, right? So it's also about what you think, right? So what seems to be plausible. And you can do a broader data analysis, kind of what you did, right? You can even bring in multiple attributes and then try to correlate, right? And then based upon the correlation, to dig deeper. But you can also find something that has a correlation but doesn't have really a meaning to it, right? But if you assume that the process should be different, and that's often the approach which I take, right? So if you talk about region, then I could imagine that the people who are working together and execute the process have their own way in doing things, right? And they are kind of disconnected from the other region where the process is executed. And maybe they have a similar basis in the generalized working instructions, but the interpretation could be different, right? And then it's interesting to compare these different behaviors as the inner working of the process.
Exactly, and that's what you did next, right, Hanna? So should we look at how you split up the process now into the 3 regions and what you did with that?
Really very interesting to see how different region or different branch use the same process, structure and organized the same process and has different results. But if we see slides, you can see 3 process scheme. It's the same process, but it's process how different region organize this process. And if we see for the first part of process, we can see region 1 and region 2 use step by step this process, but region 3 use parallel process, and region 3 can do a few process, a few steps in the same time, and as we see, it's make better results for shorter and quickly first part of the process. And it's
so just you have a second slide, right, where you focus on this first part in the process, where you see the sequential and the parallel pieces, right? So
and as we see, it's good view and good example for analyzed, and I'm happy use Discord in this case, because for few clicks and I see this picture, and I can I have tools for analyzing, and really it's wonderful. And very interesting situation where we analyzed rework and frequency of use some steps. We can see one region has more dark blue color, other regional has light blue color. It depends for rework and repetition for some steps in the process, and it's flag for us. Ask question why. Yes.
That's a really nice example, because that shows again, you need domain knowledge to interpret what you are seeing. So you are looking at these maps and you see that a certain activity, the dark blue in one region and the light blue in another region for a certain step, it's really meaningful because it means that it's rework where it's dark blue because you do it too often actually. Whereas in the other one, it's not so big of a problem. But for another step, maybe that would be not the case, right? So you know where the points are, where you can look for rework, and then you can see based on the frequency where a lot of rework happens. So that's, if I understand you correctly, what you were comparing here?
Yes, really. And if we see in all region step dark blue color, we understanding its problem step in process in general, and we understanding we need to do something. We need deep analytics of these steps and analyze why it's happened and something a reason of this. But if we have a few region has dark blue color and one region or few region has light blue color, we understand situation different in different region, and maybe one region or one part, one branch make decision for optimizate these steps, or this region has best practice or best ideas for these steps, but other region has different situation, and for us it's very important indicators of flux to process in general and process in different region.
Yes, and did you find that the rework was the biggest explanation for the differences that you saw between the regions, or did you also find other things when you compared the three processes?
Yes, rework it's important, and we analyzed some situation with rework, and it depends for maybe mistake in process, maybe mistake in documents, in set of documents, or maybe in quality of documents. Rework depends for communicate with process members. Maybe some region has quickly communicated, other region has slowly communicated, and it's of course depend to the rework and these indicators.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So did you kind of discuss this result, right? So if you do the individual analysis, did you discuss this with the regional manager or director, and then review their process and also the differences with the other regions? Is that something what you have done as part of the initiative?
One side, yes, but other side, maybe it depends for outside situation, yes, because it depends not only for person, for manager, for people who work with this process. It depends for outside information in region. It's depends for something for something factors what independent to person or manager.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, it depends for different factors, and we can analyze what is the factors and what we can do.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Really, that's also something what we see. If you find different reasons, then it's one important step to separate the things that you can do something about internally, or what are maybe external causes. So for example, if you're waiting for the customer on something, maybe you can think of some ways to make it easier for them to come back to you more quickly, but at the same time, it's not something that you can reorganize for them. So that's also, when you think about which improvement steps can you take, that's an important distinction.
Yeah, so in the approach, I've seen different ways you can do it, right? So you can bring the different regions together to look at each of their process maps and then share best practices, right? So then everyone tells about their process and everyone reacts on them. And then in that process, they find new ways, right? So, are you doing it that way? And then they are kind of creating new best practices. So that could be kind of a bottom-up approach. Another approach, what you see often, is if they started to realize benchmarks across, for example, different countries, right? So I've seen leasing processes, which the leasing processes are operating in different countries. Then they create reports for each of the individual countries, but they benchmark also the reports. And they know that the products are different, right? So in country A, they sell different products than country B.
Yeah.
But what they are interested in is to understand if they are comparable, right? What can we learn from each other? And everyone wants to be on top, right? So that's also kind of a way to challenge each other to find new ways. And then you see, are they able to do that in 2 days? So how are they doing this, right?
Yeah, how are they doing it? Yes.
Yeah, and then the interesting part is that they can look at the process maps and then see at which particular point they can do it. And then they start to think about their own process. So maybe we can do it different.
It's also a much more positive way to go about it. How are they doing it, right? Then you're really looking for best practices. Can we learn something from that? It's much more positive than looking at, the ones who are taking very long or blaming. But it's really about this cooperative culture that you need for process mining to be able to really do good improvements with it.
Yeah. Really apply to best practice in process. It's a wonderful way because in my project there are many situations when we indicate best practice and we ask for our colleagues how do you do this, and what happens, and we hear interesting idea. It's idea not very clear for first view, but our colleagues who understanding deeper process, who understanding individual aspects of process, colleagues tell about how we can improvement, how we can develop this process, and it's wonderful idea, and it's wonderful examples, really.
Yeah. True collaboration, yes.
Yeah.
And you also looked at the timing, right? So if, you looked at the flows, you looked at rework, but you already mentioned it. You also looked at how long they take in these different steps and how the rework was influencing the timing. So should we look at that last picture as well? So to complete.
Yeah, very interesting time for our process. Not only frequency and rework, and time and bottleneck. It's important part of our analytics too. And before, and you comment about clients and about waiting clients in our process, and really interesting situation. For example, in our process, we check some situation where we have very long steps, and as you see on the picture, it's dark red color. It's steps the same in all region. It's very longer process and its process. Its steps using our region, and in our region it's bottleneck. And we analyzed what happened, and we understanding in this step our colleagues wait answer of client, wait information of client, and something else. And we understand it's bottleneck, and we need to do something with this. One of ways in this situation, it's add new steps, new client steps, and on these steps we indicate how long time we wait client, and and after that we understanding in these steps process members do something for a long time, or for the next step we wait client for result, for answer, and something. And really it's interesting situation. For this slide, next situation, it's below for process. We see red arrows. Yes, and it's the same situation with client. We can wait client and maybe for this step happen some mistakes. Maybe we don't have all documents or something happened, and we come back for previous step and restart some part of the process. And it's interesting indicators, and it's very good show what happened and what we can do for improvement for these steps or this part. I add statistic information. It's below for slides. It's table with comparison region and result. Yes, we have 3 region. We have information about count of case for analytics, and we see results. You can see region 3 has longer lead time and few case, not more case. But region 2 or region 1 has more cases, but has short lead time, and it depends for rework and for bottlenecks in this process.
So it's a combination of both rework and bottlenecks that explain the long duration for the green region, right? It's what we saw on the first slide also.
Yeah, very important to compare not only one characteristics, for example, lead time. Yes, we need compare other characteristics. For example, count of case, maybe count of client, maybe how much bill or how much order. We need use a few characteristics for analyzed, because if we use only lead time, okay, we have a situation with longer, but maybe in this region has outliers or something situation, and we need to add other characteristics in analytics.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I now also see, what's kind of important is, you can look at the total lead time, right, and then compare. So that's often what we refer to as a KPI, right? So we compare the KPI of each individual region, being able to compare, and that's the outcome, right? And then we still have a lot of questions about why, and that's kind of what you uncover now, right? So you can see each red part of the process map where you can see bottlenecks. But here it also helps kind of to identify, but if we do the comparing, right? So if we would kind of move one layer deeper into the KPI, we would now be able to emphasize where the biggest problem lies, right? So if we want to report on more details, then we know, that red activity, if we want to compare, then we should compare that red activity with each other, right? So it says more over the overall part of the process.
Yeah, and the rework, right? So both of these.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's often what we refer to, that there's two levels of, even more levels of KPI, but at least two levels, right? So you have the outcome of the process itself, right? So that's often what they refer to as a KPI in the traditional sense. But you also have the leading indicators as part of the process, which are very predictable to the outcome of the process itself, right?
Yeah,
and
that influence the outcome, yes.
Yeah. So on a day-to-day basis, if that activity takes a day, for example, but if you really focus on that activity, you can have an impact on the outcome of the process itself.
Yes. Exactly. Maybe it's a good time now to show how you do this in Disco, what Hanna was showing us here, right? Should we show that?
Yeah.
So we can use the same example that we just looked at to see where we can see the overall process case duration, where we looked at the median and the mean here in the upper right corner. What we see if we're looking at the map, it's a simplified process map, but in fact it's a little bit of a similar situation like Hanna's process with the 3 regions, because actually these are also 3 processes in one picture. And if we're looking at the statistics, we see that there's this channel attribute that we saw during the import step, which indicates through which channel the refund order was started, right? It's an electronics manufacturer where customers can return the product that isn't properly working, and they want to receive their money back, right? And this kind of refund can be requested at the dealer, so that's the shop where they purchased the product in the first place. It can be the internet, so they can do it online, or they can call the call center. And in fact, the processes are quite different. So if you want to compare these 3 processes, you can do 2 different things. So we will show you 2 methods, and it's not that one method is right and the other isn't, but they both have their perspectives and their advantages, and you will see how it works. So the first step would be to separate the process into 3 processes, just like Hanna did with region 1, region 2, region 3. You can do it explicitly, but the shortest or quickest way is to use the right click here on the attribute. So for example, I can right click on the dealer attribute and say filter for dealer. So this adds an attribute filter which has already selected the right attribute and already the right value that I clicked on, right? And then generally what we recommend is that you can apply directly, but it's better to use the copy and filter button, because this way you can keep your previous analysis and add new perspectives. And this is what we want to do. We want to add these 3 new perspectives for these 3 channels. So we say dealer channel. It's the first one. And so we see now only the dealer channel is left, right? And the process map looks a little bit different. And we can continue and do it in the same way let's pick call center. So we call this, again, we are copy call center channel. And here we see, for example, actually the process looks quite different to the dealer channel, right? So the dealer channel, you can go back and forth here at the top. Yeah, was much more. There were much more activities, quite a big volume. Also, actually, more than 90% of the cases go through the dealer channel, whereas the call center channel, is just 3%, right? So Hanna also talked about you have to look at the case volumes if you're comparing. So that's something to keep in mind. And then let's just do the third one as well. So then we go to the internet channel. And we will see how that looks. And we see it's also a little bit similar like the call center channel, and also quite low volume, 6% approximately. Now, if we have made the separation, so here we have now those 3 processes separated, just like Hanna did with region 1, region 2, region 3. Now you can get all of the statistics separately, right? So here, if we go to the overview statistics, we can see the mean and the median and any of the statistics, and of course the process, including the bottlenecks, like we were looking at the bottlenecks. So you can look at this per process and really look in depth, like where the differences are.
Yeah, and we can also look at outliers, right? So if you look at the statistics and if you sort based upon the long durations, for example.
Like case durations, long case durations?
In the table, then you can find the short-running or the very long-running cases, right?
Yes, there are some short-running and the long-running one. We can look at that. Yes, so you can always look at concrete examples, right, for what was going on really long. So here we have 60 days. We actually just have 2 months of data. So we see there's one case that has been going on for the whole period. And we see what happened there and what took long. And here, actually, for example, we see some reasons also that missing documents requested is actually a step where the electronics manufacturer contacts the customer, because the customer needs to provide a purchase receipt as a proof of purchase before they can get their money back. So if this is missing, then they need to get back to the customer to request this missing information. And we can see that here they have done it actually 3 times. And apparently afterwards they received the proof of purchase, and then there were 3 signatures they had to create, and then actually the process was finished, right? So in this sense we can see some of the problems in this process already, but we also wanted to show you the second method, because you can look at the processes separately, but sometimes it can also be useful to see them next to each other. And especially in this case, it's especially interesting for the call center and the internet channel, which have quite similar processes. So they should actually be quite similar. And we want to compare them more directly, how to do this. So one way to do this is that if we go back to the import step, and we import the process again, we can take the channel attribute, which is a static attribute that doesn't change across the process, and we make this part of our activity name, right? So we keep the activity that we had before, but now in addition, we also add the channel attribute, which means that both of these fields will be concatenated, combined together. And so that means we will unfold the process in this channel dimension. We will see the effect of that if we import. Now, of course, if you have a lot of dimensions, this can become quite big, but you can again filter it, right? So we see on the right side, that's the big chunk of the dealer channel, which is 90% of the process. So let's not focus on that, because we want to compare internet and dealer channel. So here we can then go again to the channel attribute and remove the dealer. So we just keep call center and internet. And if we do that, now we have the internet and the call center channel in one picture. And the advantage of this second view, the second perspective, is that now the coloring, right? With the coloring, you can see the legend here on the right side, both for the performance view, but also for frequency view. This now has, the same basis, the same reference point. So if something is dark blue in one process and light blue in the other one, it really means it's comparable, right? Because if you have the processes separate, for example, here in the call center channel, let's go to the dealer channel. So here, what is dark blue is the most frequent one just within this chunk of data, just within this channel. And so if you want to compare frequencies, that can be a useful view to have them together like this. And you can do exactly what Hanna did and look for specific activities. For example, we had these missing documents that we identified where we were waiting for the customer, right? We can see there's quite a difference here in these two processes, where in the internet channel, it happens a lot, right? We have more than 90 times for just 83 cases. So on average, more than once, we have to go back to the customer to request this proof of purchase. While in the call center channel, it's not so much of a problem. It just occurred 4 times, right? So we can more easily compare the difference between these two and see, okay, we have actually a problem here in this channel, and then we can think about ways how to address this. Maybe make this uploading the proof of purchase mandatory when customers submit their refund request, right? That could be an idea, or you can think of other ways. But so this is, I think, right, really what we wanted to give on your way. If you compare processes, you can separate them and look at them separately. But sometimes it also makes sense to combine 2 or 3 together to look at them side by side.
Yeah, and it depends also what the approach was, right? Where we started. You can start with the split view, right? And then start comparing the different processes.
Yes.
But it is also that you can kind of start with the attributes, right? And then assume, and then kind of break it down per attributes to see if you can see something different and compare the volumes, right? So if you see only one of them compared to 500, for example, then it's less useful to break them up.
Yeah. Sorry, yes, please, Hanna.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting example for compare not the same process, or not the same process in different channel, and as we see, different channel has a different scheme of process, and compare of different scheme, we can use best practice, and we can analyze what steps we can do more optimized, maybe what steps we can skip, and develop of process, and do process more efficiency. And it's a wonderful exam with because in my previous exam I compare the same process scheme with something specific, but in your example, different scheme, and we can compare different practice and use best practice.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, I would say that's the perfect ending words. Maybe that's what we wanted to show you here today. Rudy, we will continue a little bit with this type of topic, right? In the next Prosmining Café in a month, we want to actually follow up on comparing processes, talking more about benchmarks, and showing more concretely some other scenarios how you do this exactly. So one of the approaches, of course, is being able to compare the processes up front before you kind of dive a little bit deeper, right? So how can you do this? So there are certain techniques which you can apply specifically in order to do this in practice. Yes. Yeah, so you should all join our next Prosmining Café next month. Sign up on the mailing list if you want to be notified. Yes, and certainly, sign up for camp if you can come. Would be great to have you in Eindhoven in May. So this brings us to an end. Thanks so much, Hanna, for sharing your experience. It was great. It was really great to have you on the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You gave the inspiration, and you shared your example here, so that was really useful. Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you all for watching, and see you back at the cafe next month. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.